here's the version number for MacForce. I figured I'd make a video on some of the more niche aspects of being an engineer in this game mode. I play on the official servers for the majority of the time, so I know some people edit the mission and play it differently, so this, obviously might not work for everyone. Mileage may vary. I'll start just getting a basic loadout. Alright. Here's my basic. Let's get ahead. All I have in this loadout is medic, sandbags, first aids, food, machete, shovel. Machete and shovel are for cutting trees and building structures. Sandbags work for supplies on those structures. One sandbag is 10 supplies, and 5 sandbags was enough for 1 respawn. So you always want to have lots of sandbags on you. All of my loadouts have 200 or more, if I can help it. Besides that, everything you need is there. Just throw a gun in here. Let's grab an M14. Why not? Alright, yeah, I cleaned up the map. I just deleted all the AAs and everything so I don't have to worry about lag as much. And it makes the map a lot cleaner for me to show you stuff. Let's pretend we were going to go to this AO here. Once you have all your engineer stuff kitted up, you want to know how to pick a spot. And right now the main thing you want to avoid is bodies of water. So this whole beach right here, you want to avoid it like the plague, because enemies will spawn like 600 meters away from players, and they'll spawn in water if they randomly get the chance to. So say you're above the FOB here on this black dot, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that radius, this whole bay. You'll have enemies spawning in the middle of it, and they'll try to swim super slowly to get to you. It makes things take way longer, so you want to avoid that where possible. I typically build inland, so here's a good spot. Here's a good spot. You can build outside the red zone if you want. There's a good spot, so you just avoid water at all costs. The worst AOs that have that problem would be this island, or both of these islands, and also this one here, because there's just so much shoreline. People love trying to build a FOB here in the docks, but that causes enemies to spawn in the water like that sort of radius almost. So you have them swimming for hours and hours while you're stuck waiting, so you always build away from the water. I typically build this AO on top of that hill, or sometimes like right there. It works out okay. Show you how the supplies work. Typically in a multiplayer server there's lots of pilots on, and a convention user asking them to send them build supplies. These are the build supplies you're asking for. The pilots go and talk to this guy. Large and small. It'll be those there. That's the large one, that's the small one. The large is 2,000 supplies, the small is 500. And for reference, the sandbags you're carrying are 10 each. So with my 200 sandbags is the same amount as one of those big ones that a pilot would carry out to your FOB. Let's make sure I have the proper roll before I go. Yeah. There's ACAV and engineer. So you're always talking to these duty officers if you're brand new to this. You go up to them, hit H, that lets you change your squad. And you hit 6 to get at this menu and change your specialty. Alright, let's go to Caius. Yeah. Anyone is able to fly these as long as you actually know how. These are the light helicopters. They're unarmed except for the door gunner. They're always marked on the map as light helicopters. Anyone's allowed to fly them. They just don't carry very much, but they get you in and out easily. If you're a good enough pilot, you can sneak in behind anti-airs and get in really early to build a FOB for people so they can respawn there. Yeah, there's 2 basic FOBs I usually build. A very compact one that is kind of like a little buggy, glitchy, built on top of itself. And then there's a more traditional FOB I build with like a perimeter of walls. Once I land, I'll show both examples. They don't take too long. if you see here coming into these fields, there's those walls with the rice paddies, so you don't want to build a FOB intersecting with those. You want to be in the open or in a forest. I'll build the little compact FOB here. Let's see. Alright. Number one that you need is the situation room. You build it as low as possible. And what you gotta do is you gotta bury it and a first aid tent as well. Because once you actually have it built, it doesn't take up it takes up too much space, and it's not really necessary for anything after it's built. So I find that just burying it gets it out of the way. And we're gonna overlap it with a first aid tent. I overlap it like this because first aid tents are very fragile and expensive. If you look here, they cost 500 supplies per hour, whereas most are 20 or less. Alright, once you have these built for the compact FOB, you just bury it with a gun pit. Like this. The first aid tent is slightly taller than the situation room, so you just get it so it's sticking out above those boards there. And you back up so you don't parry yourself. It makes it less likely this will be destroyed. Yeah, hold on, I don't want to die yet while I'm recording this. I'll just be a little cheaty, move these guys out of the way. Typically what you do is you land with one or two other people, and then they act as security while you build. But I'm alone right now, so then all you need is the checkpoint. This is the spawn for people. Once you have the checkpoint up, this is where you're going to use the sandbags you're carrying. 5 of them is one respawn. So I have a mouse macro to speed this up, so I don't get carpal tunnel. And all you do is you spam add sandbag by hitting 6 and clicking that repeatedly. And 500 is plenty for now. But typically this is the compact build I use. You surround this so they don't get shot when they respawn. And then you build cover in here. And if you're in a dense forest building this, and there's not a lot of room for helicopters, what you do is you build one of these walls and you give them a helipad, and it doubles as a roof. Yeah, so if there's a lot of, if you're in the middle of a forest, you just cut down a couple trees with your machete, and then make sure there's room for them to land on top of this. Pilots will thank you for it. Last two I usually build are these, so you can more easily peek over the walls. The other thing you're missing is these fuel stations, ammo, supply, and fuel. I use the fuel ones because they're smallest. They double as an ammo crate, so typically I'll build one, and whenever a friendly dies, you can take their ammo, put it inside of here, so it doesn't go to waste. You can open it up, throw stuff inside. You can loot enemy bodies and such. You get the idea. But yeah, this is the compact FOB that I build typically. And when you're looking at these things and it says they're decaying, what that means is if there's no players within 100 meters, then it will start to despawn and disappear. But if you're not leaving, then there's not really much to worry about, because it'll just stay around if you're around the area. Let's finish these up real quick, and then I'll fly into a forest or something and show you the other FOB version. Alright, let's say you didn't have a perfect open field and you were building a more traditional FOB. Here should be fine. Just you're landing next to or inside of a forest. You got the same order of operations. You want situation room, you want checkpoint. First aid tent isn't strictly necessary, but if you think you're going to have good supplies from pilots, then you can build a first aid tent as well. In a typical FOB, you want enough space for a helicopter to land inside as well, so you got to keep that in mind when you're surrounding it with walls. And you also want an entrance because not all servers let you have enhanced movement. Let's put some supplies in there, just in case I die. Alright, so let's get the entrance. My favorite is the cross here, or cross half anyway. And then we're just going to make a ring of walls connecting them here. If a tree is in your way, you can just take out the machete, whack it a few times, and it'll delete. Let's go here, go here. Alright, you want to look at where it's connecting, so the less room they have to walk up and down it, the better. If you can, VC shouldn't be able to. And I'm just going to keep going. Now that might clip the rotor. Oh well. Yeah, and then what you want to do is you want to plug these holes with some sort of wall or revetments. These ones are my favorite. The Twitch revetment and pillbox wall. And if you go in like a sawtooth pattern with these, you can make it so the defenses are much better, because you want to be able to peek from a corner or behind. I think in tactical manuals they call it slicing the pie. So say if this tree line was full of enemies, if I peeked once like this, then like everyone in this field of view can shoot me, but if I'm peeking from behind like this, I can control how much of an angle they have on me, so I can only shoot one guy at a time, and you're less likely to die that way. So these vertical walls are pretty important. And then if you also want to save a little tiny bit of convenience, if you go here, there's a trench cover, not spider hole, it's trench cover, and it fits perfectly over this entrance, so people would run over it if they want. Okay, like that. Just run over it while you're patrolling the walls. Works out great. But yeah, this is the typical traditional FOB. You'd cut down the rest of these trees if you wanted. And then you have plenty of space for helicopters to land inside of this area here, drop off supplies and stuff. Yeah, most trees aren't usually a problem unless they're blocking the helicopters. There's one specific, or a couple specific models of tree that you want to focus on cutting down. They're the ones with the most leaves. So this tree right here on the tip of my machete, that one's a problem that should be cut down because its branches are so low. There's also, here's another example of it here. So you want to cut ground foliage and trees with low-hanging foliage. The tall ones like that in the background, they're not really a problem because enemies will shoot you through leaves, they won't shoot you through wood. So this model of tree as well is another problem. I think it's called Enocarpus. There's a sniper version you can build. Yeah, right here. This one. If you look on the green area, there's 3 little small trees surrounding it. And they're connected to the tree roots. That's this one, that one, and this one. So cutting down one of these is like cutting down 4 trees in total. So you want to focus these if you see them. See, it clears a ton of space. Whereas these ones, you don't really have a lot blocking your view around the trunk. It's just blocking pilots. So I usually only focus on the carpus ones with a lot of leaves on the ground, and then just small bushes that enemies should shoot you through like this. The bigger trees aren't as much of a problem as the leaves are like this. Let's see, I'll fly back to that other area so I have more space to show you other structures you can build. Yep. One other common request people have when you're building a FOB is sniper towers. They're just really nice to be above the ground and have a good field of view. And early on in the game mode, the one that people always built was the water tower, the reservoir towers. They worked when we didn't really know what we were doing, but they also kind of suck. They take up a lot of space, they're very expensive, they cost 83 per hour, and they're also destructible. So if you get a bad pilot that crashes into it, or someone accidentally places a satchel charge or something and destroys it, it comes down pretty easy, and it just leaves a mess, and anything you build on top is floating. So I generally avoid the water towers. What I build instead is the sniper tree, this one, Ficus. And you see, the tricky thing with trees is they're bugged at the moment, and let's see if I can show you an example. If you look at that platform right there, when I build this, it'll be much lower. It'll go down like 10 meters. Yeah, there it is now. So you have to fix that, you have to build these trees floating high above the ground. Like, I usually lift it up something like that high, because then it drops back down. And these ladders are also kind of crappy. I recommend not using them because you're very vulnerable of climbing in the open air like this. What I do is I get the 15-meter ladder here, and if you make sure not to rotate it when you're clicking build, it'll be in a north-south orientation. Right now I'm facing south, so I want to go to the north side of it. Or this would be the south side facing north. And you put that side, without rotating, against the tree. That'll cause you to be inside of the tree when you're climbing it, and you're less likely to get shot. And then you just throw a helipad up there so you can stand. And you put it like right there. Then you build the helipad and you put sandbags on the corners, and this is the best sniper spot I know how to build, and it's not nearly as fragile as that water tower. You can put a breaching charge there and it won't destroy it. Yeah. Works out great. You can't cut it down either because it's a player-made structure, so machete won't work on it. Yeah, I mentioned that tower is expensive for supply costs, and these med tents are expensive for supply costs. Typically, when people build these med tents outside in the open and they get destroyed, they'll just build a new one right on top of it. The trouble is that when it's destroyed, it still costs you supplies per hour. So, say I built one out here and it got destroyed. Even though I can't interact with it anymore, it still costs 500 per hour on my supply counter. And when you keep repairing and building a new one, it just it speeds up how quickly you drain supplies. So you want to avoid that at all costs. Just build one. If it gets destroyed, just leave it. Rely on medics or just respawning. I've mentioned you want to avoid these rock walls because enemies will be able to pathfind over it into your structures. In fact, I'll actually I'll cut over to Zeus right now and show an example of why that's a problem. You don't want to build on roads or walls like that. Yeah, so because there's a road here, the enemy thinks it can walk through this wall like the wall doesn't exist. Tell him to run through, he'll just pathfind straight through this wall. So if you were to build a base across this road as like a roadblock, they don't work whatsoever. Enemies can walk right through your walls. Let's go back in the other direction. It's like it doesn't... Oh, it does work that way. Alright. good to know. Let's go this way. Because typically I use these as the outside of the wall, but if you cross a road with it, it doesn't do anything. The same thing is with roads as it is with the walls on these rice paddies over here. If your base were to intersect with one of these, then you'd have the exact same problem. At the point where it intersects here, you will have enemies walking through your walls. Let's go here. Let's put you there and tell you to go there. You go up, across, over. Yep. That just is because they're able to pathfind on these little walls here. So any structures that are in the way don't really count for them. But if you're in the middle of the forest, let's say over here, enemies will try to go around walls if they can help it. Just go like that. Go over there. See, he's going to go around this time. So your walls will actually function if you're not near any structures. Let's see. Delete you. Yeah, so like if you were to put sandbags across this little doorway here, they would walk right through the sandbags. Right? That's another example. Same here. So anywhere enemies can pathfind, they will walk through your structures. So that's the main thing you want to avoid at all costs. Alright, one last thing I guess would be lighting up your bases. Let me hop back into Zeus again, skip time so it's night. It's super dark. You should barely be able to see anything. This light is because of the situation room we buried. It works to give you some point of reference and it's not too bright. With nighttime in this mode, enemies are really nerfed. They won't be able to see you unless you're like right next to them. They'll basically just hear you or smell you or something. But what you want is the lamp shabby far. It's the best one I know how to build. And you just rotate it. You look at the pole so it's pointed away from you. And you just surround your perimeter with lights facing outwards like that. You want your friendlies to be in the darkness so they're less likely to be shot. And you also want to avoid building it next to helipads, so that way, if I built it right here, I'd be clipping the rotors. So, yeah. Say you had a helipad like down here. Say you're having supplies dropped off right here in a traditional FOB. Typically what I'll do to mark it for pilots is I'll use the lanterns. They're small and they're bright, but they're only really good to see from the sky. T-E-R-N, lantern. You just put them in the corners. They're real bright. And they light up the helipad for them. Yeah, but what you don't want is lights where friendlies are going to be standing and shooting, just to avoid being spotted as much by VCs. Let them walk into their field of view with the lights. Yeah, I'll skip it back to daytime. And I guess one more small trick, if you see someone build one of these lights actually too close. Let's say someone didn't know what they were doing and they put a light post right next to your helipad like this. So pilots can't land here anymore. If you get some of these objects have physics to them, the one I use most is the steel drum. If you build it at the top like that, sometimes you get lucky and it knocks the pole down. Yep. It kind of leaves a mess, but it's better than no helipad. Yeah. I'll update this video. I'll try and get chapters in the description so you don't have to watch through all my rambling. I'll get timestamps and everything for different points. And hopefully it helped get some good ACAV engineers in the Microforce servers again. A lot of people, they get overwhelmed when they see all the options, so there's not really much documentation or tutorials on it, so I just learned by trial and error. And it all works out. Alright.